Welcome back. This is chapter 4, The Enemy, written by Per Asbach. And today I'm going to explain page number 27 to you. So here we go. A fishman perhaps, thou said, washed from his boat. So thou apprehended here that the man must be a fisherman who was washed away, who was swept away from his boat. He ran quickly down the steps. So thou rushed down, and behind him Hannah came, her white slaves flying, and he was followed from behind by his wife Hannah, and while she was rushing down, her slaves were flying in the air. A mile or two away on either side there were fishing villages, but here was only the bare and lonely coast, dangerous with rocks. So this area where his house was located, the beach in front of his house was bare, was open and lonely without any settlement. That is the area was having no human settlement. But from that point on either side of the beach, a kilometer, not a kilometer, but a mile or two, on either side of the beach were the fishing villages. The surf beyond the beach was spiked with rocks, and that area up to the beach where the sea water reached, that area was spiked, was dotted with rocks, was dotted with dangerous rocks. Somehow the man had managed to come through them. He must be badly torn, and as the area of the surf, the area of the water, sea water was that is near the beach, was dotted with rocks. So as he came through those rocks, so he assumed that he must be badly hurt. They saw when they came towards him that indeed he was, and when they approached him, when they came near him, they found that yes, indeed, he was badly hurt. The sand on one side of him had already a stain of red soaking through, and the place where he was lying, one side of the sand over there had got the red stain of blood. He is wounded, so thou exclaimed. So thou shouted that he was wounded. He made haste to the man who lay motionless, his face in the sand. Then he made haste, he rushed towards the man who lay motionless, who was unconscious, and his face was buried in sand. An old cap stuck to his head, soaked with sea water. He still had a cap on his head, though that was wet with sea water. He was in wet rags of garments. So thou stopped Hannah at his side and turned the man's head. And so he was in wet rags. His clothes were also wet and were torn at places. That is the cloth. His garment was torn at places. Now, so thou stopped his wife there at his side, and then he went ahead and then turned the man's head. They saw the face, and then there appeared the face of the man. That is, they could now see his face. A white man, Hannah whispered. Hannah softly spoke and said, a white man. Yes, it was a white man. Yes. So thou said, yes, a white man. The wet cap fell away, and there was his wet yellow hair, long as though for many weeks it had not been cut, and upon his young and tortured face was a rough yellow beard. So now, as he turned his head, the cap from his head fell. As the cap fell off his head, there appeared long yellow hair, and looking at the long hair, it was certain, and one could easily imagine that he didn't have a haircut for many weeks. And then there was also yellow beard on his face, and his face also revealed the signs and marks of torture. He was young. He was unconscious and knew nothing that they did for him, and as he lay unconscious, he had no idea what good work these good people were doing for him. So Saddam was back to normal now, and he quickly recovered. He quickly gathered himself, and now he remembered the wound, and with his expert fingers he began to search for it. Blood flowed freshly at his touch, and as he touched the wound, as his fingers reached there and it touched the wound, blood started to flow afresh. On the right side of his lower back, Saddam saw that a gun wound had been reopened, and he had been hit at the lower back on the right side, and upon his touch that wound had been reopened. The flesh was blackened with powder, and with the gunshot the flesh of that area had turned black with the powder of the gun, that is, with the gunpowder. Sometimes, not many days ago, the man had been shot and had not been intended that he received the gunshot not many days back. But the problem was that he didn't receive any treatment. He was not tended by anyone. It was a bad chance that the rock had struck the wound. It was only a bad case, a bad moment that the wounded part struck with the rocks. Oh, how he's bleeding, Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. Hannah whispered again in a soft tone, in a soft voice, how he is bleeding. She felt quite bad about it. The mist screened them now completely, and the mist completely screened them, completely covered them and blocked them from sight. And at this time of the day, no one came by, and no one was there near the beach at that point of time of the day. The fishermen had gone home, and even the chance beachcombers would have considered the day at an end. The fishermen had returned back to their homes, and even the beachcombers, the few beachcombers, those who would come and would comb the beach for any valuable, even they would consider this time as the end of business for them. What shall we do with this man? Saddam muttered, and now Saddam had a question in his mind as what to do with that man. But his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could do. stanch the fearful bleeding. But as he had this question running in his mind, on the other hand, his expert hands were doing its business. His fingers were doing the business. He was doing his normal work as he should have done, and he tried to cover the bleeding portion with something, block that bleeding portion or cover that portion, the wound. So this is all for now. Thank you.